It's Ann again, here to spend some knitting time with you. I was going to say, if you ever wanted to look me up on Instagram, that's the only social media I am on. My handle is ann.dolina. And mainly on YouTube, I post like my outfits of the day, just as something fun to do for myself. And I do post my knitting, but as I kind of mentioned in my first video, slow objects are slow in coming. So it's kind of a fun thing that I can do every day that doesn't depend on how I'm feeling, you know, because I do have fibromyalgia, I do get flares, I do have pain, kind of on the regular to varying degrees. And so, you know, some days there's just no knitting happening. Today what I'm going to work on is, so I made these little fingerless gloves, and I used a basic, I used the basic glove pattern. I'll post it in the notes what pattern I used, and then I just stopped where I thought I wanted them to stop on my hand. So they're very snug, and I like them a lot, but what I don't like is I think I should have knit probably like 5-7 rows in stocking net so that the ribbing sat farther down on my wrist. But I don't want to undo them because there's a lot of ends to weave in when you do fingerless gloves. So what I'm thinking, so this is, I mean, it's kind of like a leftover project from a leftover project. So I knit a hat. I wanted a garter stitch beret. I don't know if any of you have ever watched, what is it called? The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. It's a wonderful movie. It's on Netflix. And our main character in that movie wears a beautiful dark brown garter stitch beret. So I wanted one too. And also I'm taking a trip with my husband to New York, and I wanted some hats that were, I wanted a hat that was a little bit more fashionable that I could leave on while I was inside touring museums and something. And that was less of a snow hat and more of a style hat that, hey, also keeps you warm. So anyway, I had yarn left over from that, and the yarn is wonderful. It is from Sincere Sheep. She is out on the west coast of the United States, and it's hand dyed with indigo. It's all California and maybe Colorado wool, so it's all done here in the US. And she just makes great yarns. I've knit a sweater out of her yarn before, and this is her sport weight, which I knit pretty densely using US size 2. Oh. I never remember my metric. You know, we were taught metric for a brief time in school under Jimmy Carter, and I loved it. It was so easy, right? 10 to 100. It just made so much logical sense. And then Reagan came and whooshed the metric away. So yes, I knit these on a size 2.75 millimeter US size 2 needle. And what I'm thinking, so that I don't have to undo things, I'm thinking of picking up stitches all along the ribbing, and I think I might just do rows of garter stitch. I'm not sure, honestly. So I had 10 grams left. Now it's funny because like I use US needle sizes, but I do weigh my yarn in grams just because it's more accurate, or you know, smaller units, easier when you have small items. So I divided my 10 grams into 2 balls of 5 grams, so 1 for each mitt. And I think I can get some extra length because they're just a little too short. Like, I don't like them very long because then they interfere a lot of times when the weather's cold with what you're wearing. But I do like them a little longer than I made them. And then I was also going to tell you, you can make center pull balls really easily. You don't need a ball winder. Now, there's nothing wrong with a ball winder, but I have a very small house, and I have had a ball winder and the umbrella Swift that you put the skein on and then wind it. And I got them because I thought I needed them. Like, these were tools that I needed as a knitter. And I also got them because I wanted to do things faster. I did not want to wait for the process of winding yarn, and I really had this push when I was first into knitting in a big way in the early 2000s that I had to do more, faster, more. And now I'm like, how slow can I make it? So I'll show you on the center pull ball. I'm sure there's other YouTube videos out there, but just basically take a tail and I lay it over my pointer and my middle finger, and I kind of hold the tail with my other 2 fingers, and I just wrap. See what I'm doing? I'm wrapping, but I'm holding the tail so the tail doesn't get stuck in. And I'm wrapping for a little bit. And then I kind of put that wrap over my thumb again, kind of, holding the tail to the side. And then I just wrap over it, pivot a little bit so that I can wrap over it some more, kind of at a diagonal. I don't know if you can see that. And then I just keep going around in a circle doing that, wrapping for a little bit at an angle, turn, wrap for a little bit more at an angle, turn, wrap a little bit more, turn, and sometimes you get like, some of that, your original wraps getting squeezed out. So yeah, so I actually sold my skein winder and my Swift because we have a really small house and it's kind of nice to have less of anything. I can make less, and so I sold them. We have an annual garage sale in our neighborhood, and it's kind of funny. It's called the garage sale, but we have alleyways between two rows of homes, and so since it's not really easy for people to park on the alleyway, we do it in our front yard and call it a yard sale, and it's a lot more visible that way. It's a little tricky if it rains, but anyway, I sold them, and so now I have a perfect little center pull ball for my just wee bit of 5 ounces, or 5 grams, sorry. So what I thought I'd do while we're talking is try to pick up stitches along my cast on edge. And I am kind of curious if this is gonna, if that edge is gonna be, I want to make sure I leave myself a long enough tail to weave in. I'm kind of wondering how the cast on edge will feel on my wrist, but this is not a big commitment. This is only 5 grams of yarn, and it's only going to be a little bit of knitting. But I am always kind of interested in how I can modify knits even when they're finished. Because like you could always take notes, and you know, if you knit the same garment again. But a lot of us don't do that, right? Like we want to, ooh, next thing, shiny, something new. I want to knit that, and so I would say it's probably pretty rare that people knit the same pattern twice. I have done it. I did it for one of Jennifer Steingrass. What is her Instagram handle? Knit Wool Love or something like that, or Knit Love Wool. She is a very popular designer that does a lot of the yoked sweaters where it's a color work along the yoke, and then the sleeves and the body are, so you're usually knitting from the top, the neck down. And I knit one of hers for myself, and I liked it so much. Oh, we've got Opie here. Hi, Opie. He wants to snuggle, or wants a walk, I think. I know, we can go on a walk when it gets a little warmer. Right now I'd have to put a jacket on you, and you don't like your jacket. So, I don't know if I told you this, but so my rescue dog Opie only has one eye. We don't know how he lost his eye, but he has an amazing, what we call a monocular stare with the one eye to get you to do what he wants. And right now I think what he wants is a walk, but he's going to have to wait till it warms up a little bit, because it is going to get into the 50s today, which is so wrong for November in Minnesota. Don't even get me started, but it'll be nice for him. And it's actually sunny out, which is lovely, which is why I'm wearing blue today. I gotta say, on these gray days, I really lean into my yellow and whites in my wardrobe because it really cheers me up a lot. I love blue, don't get me wrong. Blue is one of my favorite colors as well. Those are the two. But I don't know, on a really gray day, there's nothing like a bright yellow outfit to keep you going. So yeah, so you can just see here, I'm just picking up stitches along the edge, and so I'll have that kind of bump of the cast on edge on the inside of the glove. I mean, I could also just try to continue with the rib. There'll be a little bit of a jog. It won't be quite, I don't think it'll quite line up. But I could do that. And I like to, on small circumference items like socks and mittens and gloves, I like to use 2 circular needles. I get those ladders with double pointed needles and with magic loop. And the funny thing is, when I first started knitting, I did not get ladders. I got them after I knit for a while, and I knit really tightly. I don't know if that's part of it. I've tried to figure out the why, and I found that really frustrating. So I decided to just skip the why and go with what works. And what works is 2 double pointed needles. Now I like, there's tons of needles out there, right? Tons of different kinds. I like the Chiagoo. They've got kind of a, I don't know if you can see that, they've got kind of a brush surface on them. So while they're metal, they're not as like slippery as, say, like an Addy Turbo. Or when I first started knitting, I knit on bamboo needles, and pretty inexpensive ones, because you know, you're just starting, and we've always been on a budget, and they're great for slippery yarns because they have got a little bit of a grip to them. But They can also be kind of fatiguing because you're having to push your stitches up and having to pull them down. Yeah. So while I still have a few of them, I did sell most of those as well because they're just don't serve me as much anymore. But I do like the Chiagoo because they're kind of a nice in between. They're glossy without being too glossy, so there's a little bit of grip, but not too much. So I like them a lot. Although I gotta say, I really like the feel of wood ones in your hand. That's a lovely feeling. Yeah. I remember growing up, my mom had do you remember those aluminums? They were all straight needles, aluminum, in like bright colors like fuchsia and teal, and then they had like the metal nail head cap on the end that told you what size they were, and they made that click 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 noise when she was knitting. It was pretty awesome. But I really like circular needles. Not so much the size 16, although this is good for small stuff and for hats and stuff. But I like the longer ones just because they've got the longer needle and it's easier on my hands. Opie is really working hard on me to go on walkies. I've been struggling this week with some mobility issues. I've been having pain in my knee, which has made walking around, even just the house and doing stairs, really hard. But I think today I'm feeling somewhat better, and so I think we will go for a walk. Nicest thing about where I live is it's a little grid where my house is, and so you can modify your walk. So like when I don't know like how well I'm feeling, I will walk 3 blocks down, go up a block, walk 3 blocks, kind of like a big zigzag, kind of zigzagging like this. And that way we're never too far away from the house if I need to go back, if my knees start hurting, or my hips, or sometimes it's my back. It's all over the place. Yeah. Well, I'm making my way here. Almost around the end. But yeah, I was thinking about like knitting and things I've kind of learned now that I've been knitting for a while. And you know how I was saying how I don't have my Swift anymore, and I don't have my ball winder anymore. Another thing, because I wanted to be part of the knitting community in like a big way, but I don't have knitter friends that are, I guess, into it the same level that I'm into it. I have one friend who's a knitter, and she has 4 boys, and she homeschooled as well, which is how we met. But she's on a major budget, and I don't know, we just didn't pair well. Like, she's kind of trying to do the most she can cheaply, where I'm trying to do the least I can with yarns from local people. So kind of, and I'm really interested in natural dyeing and trying to be as gentle with my craft on the planet as possible, not trying to be too extractive of the economy. And it's wonderful. A lot of our local wool growers are very big into regenerative farming, And so it's really lovely buying their product because I know they're working really hard to make the climate better. And that's really important to me. So I don't really have a good pair up with in real life friend for how I like to knit. And I've lost my train of thought. Does that happen to you? Do you lose your train of thought? Okay, so now I'm all the way around and the big decision time. Do I do more ribbing? Or do I do garter stitch to kind of match the hat? I think I'm going to do garter stitch. If it looks terrible, I can always just pull it out and no harm, no foul. Man, sports analogies, right? They're everywhere. So this, I think this first round, I'm gonna knit. And you know, another thing you can do for garter stitch in the round, you can knit every row. So like for this hat, I'll show you. There's a bit of a seam. Can you see that? There's a bit of a seam. But what I did is I would go to the end of the round, and then I would go one stitch. I would slip the next stitch, put my yarn around it, slip it back, and then I would knit back the other way. So you're kind of going like this, one way, back that way, one way. But you get to knit the whole time. And now that I've taken this off, my head is cold, so I'm going to just go ahead and put it back on. Wasn't planning on wearing it today, but it goes, so why not? So I think I'm going to do the same thing with this glove. I'm going to do garter in the round by knitting one way, then back the other way, by catching that one stitch to change the position of the yarn. And that's where you get kind of that little bit of that seam. But I don't really mind the seam so much because it makes the knitting so much more pleasant. Not that I'm against purling. I know some people are like Martina Behm. She's an amazing designer, and I have knit her Tensfield hat pattern. I probably have knit over 50 times. I donate those hats or give them to friends. And it's all knitting. There's no purling in it. It's a garter stitch. It's a garter stitch hat, and it is beyond clever. The woman is like mathematician clever in my mind with some of her patterns because she doesn't like to purl. And so she comes up with all these ingenious ways to just keep knitting without purling. But we're gonna do the same thing here. I don't know if it's not necessarily ingenious on my level, but you know, we'll take what we can get. Oh yeah, so back to what I was saying about like things I have done differently now that I've been knitting for a while, and like I was really into project bags. Well, project bags are cool, and like I love Amy Beth, the Fat Squirrel. She sews project bags. That's her business. But the funny thing is it's kind of like know yourself is the big lesson here. I bought a bunch of project bags. I don't go anywhere, right? And I used to have a bunch of projects going at the same time. I'm a lot more monogamous with my projects. So yeah, I don't need project bags. Like, I mean, they would just sit there, and sometimes I would, stuff them for like the upcoming projects, right? Like I would get all excited and I would prep them, and I would put, hi Opie, he is really, really wanting something from me, and I'm not sure what it is. I think it's just walkies, but he's going to have to wait for that. Oh, okay, he'll handle a little petting. Yeah, so I used to stuff them with, like, I print out my pattern, and I put my yarn in there, and if I had, you know, maybe a couple different kinds of needles, I would put the needles in there, and I'd be like, oh, look at me, I'm all ready. And then, personality-wise, they were in an opaque thing, and so I totally forgot about them, and then I'd be like, gosh, where are those needles? And I thought I had this yarn, and then I would dig them up. So yeah. So basically, I got, again, like, this thing of consuming and then getting rid of all those things that you consumed. I kept just a few project bags to hold whatever my current project is. I have maybe I'll show it to you next time because I don't want to get up here, but like I have a basket, and that's usually what my current project is in. And then I kept 3 project bags, like a small one for like a sock project or gloves or mittens, a hat. And then I kept my biggest one, there's Opie, laying on my tripod. Animals are so sweet. And those are for, like, if I take a trip and I want to take a little knitting project with me of some sort, you know, I will, so I have something to pack it in. But for the most part, yeah, I don't use project bags. So, like, I'm learning about myself, right? I don't go anywhere. I don't have a lot of projects going on at the same time. Like 3 project bags, and I made one of them because I was really wanting. I wanted to be part of the knitting community, and I was trying to kind of buy my way in. Does that make sense? Like, I wanted to have the things that the cool people had, and one of them was, what was it? It was Grain Line Studio. They had the field bag, and I wanted a field bag, but it was beyond my means. And so I actually made my own field bag. Not anywhere near exact as theirs were, but, you know, close enough. It had like a cinching ropes, and it's made of a red canvas that I used for something for my son when he was little. And I had spare fabric, so it was one of those projects that just fell together beautifully. Like, I had the idea, I just kind of I just basically measured right onto the fabric and cut it, and I ended up having the cotton cord from something else, and so I could just use that cotton cord, and it was fantastic. And it's a little wonky, but it was just so satisfying. You know, I love it when you get that that creative flow, that, you know, from idea to end, it's like it was no work at all. It just happened so beautifully. I just think that's such a gift when that can happen. Yeah, I like to go where the energy is, if that doesn't sound too woo-woo. You know, I like to work on what I'm excited about, because that pushes me through maybe the parts of the project that aren't as exciting. Yeah, like with sewing, so I'm learning to sew garments, and I get stuck in the cutting out the fabric process. I don't know why, but that's just, that part is really hard for me. Probably, I mean, I usually get like a PDF pattern, have to tape together the pattern, have to cut out the pattern, then I have to clear off everything off my sewing table to use it as a cutting table. And then it's still kind of a small cutting table, so then I have to move stuff around, and you got to iron the fabric, and there's just so many steps that like that part is really hard for me. So I try to only work on a sewing project if I'm really excited about it, because it'll kind of push me, get me through that beginning part. And like with knitting, the beginning part is like woohoo, but like, maybe the gauge swatch is kind of the equivalent to cutting out your fabric in a sewing pattern. It's like, oh, I gotta do a gauge swatch, and then I gotta wash it, then I gotta wait for it to dry, then I gotta measure it, and then if it's wrong, I gotta do the process again, which is kind of like, oh my gosh, really? But knitting takes so long. You don't want to have to, oops, I'm like wondering if I knit this stitch. It doesn't look like I did, but I must have. Anyway. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just going back and forth here, working on this glove. What are you working on lately, huh? What's on your needles is the expression. You got anything fun going that you want to share? I would love to hear about it. I love to talk all things knitting. Let's see. Is there anything else that I like? Yeah, so like now I wind my ball by hand, and I find, just ability wise, because we all have different abilities and different energy levels. I'll just put. So what I'll do is I'll drape the hank around my knees. And I just go slow. And I can even put the ball in process down, take the hank off, put it, I have a desk right next to me, which is why I keep going over this with my hands. And I'll come back to it later to finish. I don't have to do it all in one sitting. But yeah, I have a lot less needles. I got rid of a lot of my straight needles. I know there's some people out there that's what they prefer. I really do love my circulars, and I have, now that it's been so many years, I have a pretty good set of fixed 16-inch, kind of random on what I have. That's a fixed circular needle. And by fixed, I mean like, like the tips don't come off. Because there's interchangeable needles where you can screw off the tips and put on different sizes on the cords. And I do have a set of those. I'm just petting Opie a little bit more here. I really am surprised that he's usually sleeping this time of day. So I'm really surprised that he's up. But I have a good set of circular or interchangeable needles. I just have, and it's not fancy, I just have knit picks, or not knit picks, oh gosh, the name just popped right out of my head. They're those wood ones that are colored. Knitter's Pride. That's what I have. I have Knitter's Pride. And I like them. They're sometimes I kind of shove with my finger, so sometimes they're a little bit pointy, and I will get sometimes I'll cut myself, like I'll poke right through to the skin. Depends. I would love like a Chiagoo set, but it's hard to expense that when the other works perfectly well, that you already have. So, but I got rid of my straight needles. I just don't use them. It always drove me nuts because like I would get them caught like in my shirt cuffs and such. I found that to be pretty annoying. But I do, and it's funny because I do knit a lot of things in pieces that do not need circular needles, but I I like how, because I drop things a lot, I like how if I accidentally drop that needle, it's attached, and so I don't have to bend down to the floor and dig it out from underneath my chair. Because this is basically my studio, right? You know, you see all these people with these amazing studios. This is my studio, but my comfy chair in the living room. And then here, let's see if I can turn this without being too disruptive. Sorry, I don't want to get anybody who has motion. And then there's my desk. All right, and I'm going back here. Let's see if we can get that kind of back to where it was, yeah. And that's pretty much my knitting. I do have yarn in my room. In my room, it's like I'm a little kid. I do have yarn in my husband and my bedroom in smaller plastic tubs. And then my basket that keeps my current project sits up top our shelving unit here in the living room. Because when you have a small house, you've got to find space where you can. There's just not a lot of big spaces to keep everything together. So I kind of have to higgledy-piggledy it. I've always loved that expression, higgledy-piggledy. Yeah, so I'm not sure how I'm liking this. I think I should have started with a purl bump row instead of a knit row. Here, I'll show you. See, I think it would have looked better maybe if there was a purl bump tight to it, but I think it's fine. Overall, it's fine. Yeah. So I would love to hear what you're knitting on. I would love to hear like what kind of things you like in a podcast video. This is kind of what I like. I like somebody just sitting there chatting away. And I really like to hear about the person, I guess, which is one of the reasons why I'm telling you so much about myself. And I really am interested in people with disabilities that are doing craft of some sort or another. I follow Retro Claude, who has, I don't know if I'm going to get this right, but chronic fatigue syndrome. And it's really interesting to me the adaptations people do or what people can, like I have a, well, anyway, that really interests me. And like I wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't call myself disabled, but I have varying disabilities on varying days. Sometimes I do have mild carpal tunnel, which is why I don't knit every day. And I usually knit for shorter periods of time, or try to break it up throughout the day. I like to hear how people manage to do the things that they love, regardless of their physical abilities. That's what I really love to hear about, because some days I have shooting pains in my hands, and then I can't knit at all, and that makes me really sad because knitting is my passion. Something about it just clicks and just checks all the right boxes for my needs, right? Like, I love making something functional. I love the connection of sheep and restorative, regenerative farming, and I love that it keeps you warm. I love that. And I love all the properties about wool. I love that it keeps you warm even when it gets wet. That's a big thing here in Minnesota in the winter. Yeah. So the days that I'm not physically able to knit are hard. And that's kind of why too, like I'm trying to develop some other crafts for other days when things are different. I'm also this summer just got a vintage knitting machine, which I haven't had the brain space, what with election and stuff like that going on, to learn yet. But it's there. It's wonderful. It has a ribber, because I didn't realize this, but like knitting machines just knit. Like they don't do like the pearl stitches that are in a ribbing for your cuff or the bottom of your sweater or your sleeves. But this one has a ribber as well. So I'm really interested in learning that, because there are just days I can't knit. And wouldn't it be lovely because it's mainly like a sliding back and forth motion. There's some hand manipulating of stitches and such too, but it's a different repetitive, right? And like anytime you can shake up what you're doing, I could maybe then knit on the days that my hands hurt, because I'd be mainly just sliding a carriage back and forth along the knitting bed. That would make me happy. So that's in the future. So hopefully when I get that going, maybe I will do some videos of that too. Hi Opie. Hi. Okay, we might have to stop for today because dogs, yeah. So this is usually what happens when he wants dinner, but dinner is many hours away. So, okay. All right. Well, I hope that you all are taking care of yourself in the ways that work for you, and I hope you have the best of days. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.